So, we're finishing our series on this wonderful book, The Untethered Soul. If you've been reading this book, would you let me know that? So, a good number of you have been reading this book. And you think it's a good book? Yeah. It's a really deep book. So, we don't have any more, but they're available on Amazon. They're available, I'm sure they're available at Barnes & Noble. And so you might, if you're looking for something for the new year, this is a good book to pick up. Though I promise you that in the new year, we'll have another good book for you. And so this morning, our songs were just perfect for today's lesson. That first song, I want to be like water flowing down. Can you just see the water flowing down, and when it gets to a rock or a place, it just kind of moves around it and gently goes? That's what we want to be like in life. We want to flow through life gently and easily. We want to live our life in balance. Not too far to the right, not too far to the left. Don't eat too much and don't eat too little. Don't exercise too much and don't exercise too little. We want to be in balance. We want to have a life that's easy, that flows, that has a little resistance. In the past week when we talked about that Buddhist term, clinging. You know, the water doesn't cling to anything. And can you think of something that you've clung to in your past? I have a whole closet full of things I've clinged on to. And it felt so good when I went to CETA last week and unloaded my trunk. Because every time I do something like this, you know, it makes you have to you read a book and it has an impression on you. And so when I walked in my closet and I saw the things I was clinging onto, I had to uncling some. And as Julie will tell you, I haven't gotten to the kitchen yet. I got lots I could uncling to. Over the years, thank you for our garage sales, our yard sales, I have gotten rid of 4 sets of dishes. Does that tell you anything about me? I had the first set of dishes I had ever bought when I was 21 or 22. I had the set of blue and white dishes that my sister sent me because I happened to say I like them. I had the white set of dishes that came from my mother's. And I had a set of clear glass dishes. And then I had another set of dishes that I don't remember where they came from, but somewhere along the way. And I got rid of all my dishes, and guess what I had to do? Buy a new set. But they match. And I like them. But just as there's things that we cling to that keep our life from flowing like water, there's things that we resist. Like that rock, the water just goes around. There are things in our life we resist. And there's a lot in a whole chapter about resistance. And I'm just I can't say it as good as he can. How you deal with your energy flow, because truly that's what it is. Whenever you resist something, you're stopping energy from flowing. However you deal with energy flow has a major effect on your life. Well, that probably right there is a pretty major sentence, because if we don't have energy flowing through our body, what happens? Get stuck. And it gets stuck, and how does it show up?
You sleep a lot.
You sleep a lot, you get depressed.
Cortisol levels. Increased cortisol levels.
You increase your cortisol levels, and what does that do?
Increases your stress, and decreases your healing and increases your blood sugar.
Okay, so it decreases your healing, increases your blood sugar, increases your blood pressure. So it happens to our bodies. Not good stuff. If you assert your will, now will is an interesting word. Will is one of our spiritual powers. We have the spiritual power to use, the spiritual power of will to use as we wish. And here's a negative use of that spiritual power. If you assert your will against the energy of an event that has already happened, it is like trying to stop the ripples caused by a leaf dropped into a still lake. Have you ever thrown a rock or seen something drop in the water and watched the ripples? Mm-hmm. If you haven't, go home, fill up your bathtub, make the ripples, and then try to stop those ripples. Because we even when we were showing the things about quantum physics, when you try to stop those ripples, what happens? You make more. You double the ripples. Anything you do causes more disturbance, not less. When you resist, the energy has no place to go. It gets stuck in your psyche and seriously affects you. It reduces your healing, increases your cortisol, increases your blood pressure, increases your blood sugar. We have an expert over here who just told us that. It blocks your heart's energy flow and causes you to feel closed and less vibrant. That's what causes you to stay in bed and sleep. That's what causes you to be depressed. So if you're one of those people that experience depression, you might want to think about this, that you're trying to resist things. This is literally what is happening when something is weighing on your mind or when things just get too heavy. This is the human predicament. Events have happened, and we continue to hold their energy inside of us by resisting them. Wow. Can anybody think of anything they've ever resisted? If you've had a child, have you ever resisted something that your child wanted to do? And how did that work for you?
Pretty badly.
Pretty badly. What I found out is all it did is made them mad. I could tell them not to do something. I mean, once they get to a certain age, you can no longer say no. You know, once they're 18 particularly, I mean, you just can't say no. You just have to say, well, honey, I hope that works out for you. Would you like to hear my experience when I tried that? Because we've all tried it. And what we're trying to do is to save our kids that heartache. We're trying to save them from that life lesson. Because we know what happens when you do some of these stupid things. They're not stupid, they're just ill thought of, not fully thought about. They're not fully hatched. So he goes on, he talks a lot more about stress and resistance. But then he gets to this paragraph, he said, to avoid this, begin dealing with each situation with acceptance. I want to be like water flowing down the mountain, accepting the path, just going where it goes. Acceptance means that events can make it through you without resistance. If an event takes place and is able to make it through your psyche, you will be left face to face with the actual situation as it truly exists. Since you're dealing with the actual event rather than stored energies stimulated by the event, you won't assert reactive energy from your past. Oh, Beth, how many times do you need to read that? You will find that you are able to deal with daily situations much better. It is actually possible to never have another problem for the rest of your life. Did you hear that? Do you want me to repeat that?
Yes.
It is actually possible that to never have another problem for the rest of your life. This is because events are not problems. They're just events. I just love how he says it. Your resistance to them is what causes the problem. But again, don't think that because you accept reality, it means you don't deal with things. You do deal with them. You just deal with them as events that are taking place on the planet Earth and not as personal problems. Wow. I think of all the things that have happened in my life. I think of all the things that have happened this week that got me out of. When the floor person told me that they couldn't get the kitchen floor in before the middle of January. And I want it in this week.
Get somebody else.
I tried, believe me, I've tried. I was rushing a decision that I wasn't happy with because I wanted that plank floor, that blank plank floor, in before next week's potluck. I wanted the floor in the kitchen because if the floor was in the kitchen, then we could put the sink in the kitchen. It made life a lot easier. And I spent several days resisting the idea that probably is not going to happen. I can't tell you how many people I've called. I can't tell you how many people I have begged. I can't tell you how much I've thought about it. And did the thinking about it do me any good? No. Did it get the floor put in? No. And that's just a little thing. That's not even a thing that has any life consequences. And we have things in our life that are life consequences. We have people in our congregation who have diagnoses that don't look good. We have people who have relatives who have been diagnosed with things that don't look so hot. And we can spend our time worried and frustrated and banging our heads against the wall and saying, this shouldn't happen. This can't be happening to me. This can't happen to my friend. And does it do any good? Week before last, one of our congregants had a health challenge. They had a test coming up. And they were slightly worried about the test. Have you ever had a test where you were slightly worried? I will tell you from my experience, that hasn't happened lately, but I have gone at least 3 or 4 times to have a mammogram, and they call me on Friday and leave me a message to call the doctor's office to make an appointment for a further test on Monday. Now, I think there's a setup there. I think they get to the end of the week and that's all. They're trying to get all the things that are left over. Well, we want this one to go in and have another look-see. It's not maybe anything important, but they just do it on Friday afternoon and leave you a message. So what do you do all weekend? This can't happen to me, and it's non-productive. It doesn't do anything to make us well. In fact, it increases cortisol, it increases your blood pressure, it increases your heart, your blood sugar, and reduces it affects your immune system. And does that pretty much sum it up?
Yeah.
So what our book says is, don't cling on to anything and don't resist anything. Can you imagine that? Just flowing like water through life, not clinging on and not resisting. Just being in balance. I suspect that, like the man in the song, where you live like you're dying, I suspect that he no longer had any thought. Wrote a bull named Fu Manchu, but how many seconds? 2.7 seconds. Now, do you think when he was on that bull for 2.7 seconds, he was worried about anything? No. So one of the chapters in here says that death is our greatest teacher, because it is what tells us that life is precious. That until we get to that point that we think about death, we don't know how precious it is. The author says that suppose death came and knocked on your door and said, "Today is the day," and you said, "Well, I would like another week, please." And death would say, "Well, what did you do with the last 52 weeks? What'd you do with the last 30 years? It's a very poignant part of the book. And you could tell, when they get starting about talking about death and dying, then they're about ready to wrap the book up. Because what is the next thing they tell us? They tell us that, once we get in touch with our spiritual nature, once we learn to step back and to know God at a personal level, then death will no longer be a threat. That once we know that we are connected in a way that we cannot be separated to the God of our understanding, then we have nothing to cling to and nothing to resist. It spends a lot of time in our book about talking about stepping back, resting back into God, and then rising up with God thought. Stepping back and rising up. And so you say, "How do I do that, Beth?" And I say, Unity gives us some tools. And one of the tools that Unity gives us are denials and affirmations. Something comes up and I'm either going to resist or cling. And I can say, "This has no power over me. I am one with the energy, the infinite energy of the universe." In fact, if I am affirming that and I get quiet, I am one with the infinite energy of the universe. I'm one with the infinite. I can actually let that energy come forth and have new energy. And I hope that you have experienced that. I hope that you've had the time in your life where you have sat down in meditation and gotten to that place. And when I get to that place, I have a phrase for it. I call it sitting on the front porch of the universe. I am there, knowing that I am one with everything, that I am so much more than my body. In fact, at that point, my body has no existence. It's just this magnificent feeling of oneness. I want to talk about resistance once more again. We have these little cards, and we ask you to fill them out every Sunday and pass them to the end of the rows, and you resist that. And I cling to the desire for you to fill them out, so much so that I bribe you, and I give, in a few minutes, you will pass these to the end of the rows, and then we'll draw, and you'll get a pair of movie tickets. Resistance, clinging. In your seat this morning, you have a booklet. It's all is calm, all is bright. It is the Advent booklet, Unity's Advent booklet for 2015. And in it you will find that there are lessons for each day, little readings. And today is the first Sunday of Advent. And the first Sunday is about faith. It says, like Mary and Joseph, I may sometime find that outer circumstances are not to my liking. There is no room at the inn, they were told, but they journeyed on undaunted. When I face a challenge or obstacle in my life, I too carry on. Faith fuels my courage and commitment. As I turn to the guidance of God within, my way is made clear. I release all worries and concerns. My burden is made light. I have all the faith I need to fulfill my destiny. I step forward in confidence and give thanks for the unfolding of my highest good. And the scripture is, now faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things not seen. We have faith. We have faith that if we don't cling and if we don't resist, that life can be better. We have faith that if we use our spiritual teachings, that life is better. So I want to close with a quote that's on the front of your little flyer, and I want you to take this home because it's so true. Your relationship with God is the same as your relationship with the sun. If you hid from the sun for years and then chose to come out of your darkness, the sun would still be shining as if you'd never left. You don't need to apologize. You just pick up your head up and look at the sun. It's the same way when you decide to turn toward God. You just do it. If instead you allow guilt and shame to interfere, that's just your ego blocking the divine force. You can't offend the Divine One. Its very nature is light, love, compassion, protection, and giving. You cannot make it stop loving you. It's just like the sun. You can't make the sun stop shining on you. You can only choose not to look at it. The moment you look, you'll see it's there. The moment that you rest, relax, have faith, and trust in God, you will find that God is there. No matter what the event, no matter what the circumstance, God is always there. And so it is. Amen.